Ladies and gentlemen, this morning I rise with a heart full of awe, whispering, "Thank you, God, for another day." When my eyes opened and breath filled my lungs, it was not by power nor by might, but by your mercy. You watched over me through the night, fought battles I never saw, and granted me the gift of life again. Father, this day belongs to you. Order my steps, guard my heart, and let your presence go before me. Amen. Ladies and gentlemen, when I speak of gratitude for the gift of life and breath this new day, I am not speaking of a casual thank you whispered out of routine. I am speaking of a deep awareness that the very air filling our lungs at this moment is a miracle offered by God. While we slept, unconscious and unaware, heaven remained vigilant. Our hearts continued to beat, not because we commanded them to, but because the sovereign Lord sustained them. The breath in our lungs is not a product of our strength. It is a testimony of His faithfulness. Many laid down to rest last night with plans for today, yet only by the mercy of God have we risen to see this sunrise. This new day is more than a date on the calendar. It is a divine appointment. It is evidence that God is not finished with us. It is proof that His purpose still speaks over our lives. When we open our eyes each morning, we are stepping into a fresh expression of His kindness. The light that pierces through the darkness at dawn is a reflection of His compassion that renews every morning. He did not consult our qualifications before allowing us to wake. He simply extended grace. And that grace demands gratitude. Gratitude is not merely a polite response, it is a spiritual posture. It is the recognition that without God, we are nothing, and with Him, we are sustained. The strength in our bones, the clarity in our minds, the ability to rise from our beds, these are sacred gifts. We often rush into the noise of the day without pausing to honor the one who offered it. Yet, every heartbeat is a reminder that God is actively involved in our existence. He is not distant. He is intimately sustaining every breath we take. When we say thank you for life, we acknowledge that life is sacred. It is not random, it is intentional. God, in His wisdom, decided that we would see this day. He preserved us through dangers seen and unseen. There were accidents we did not encounter, illnesses that did not prevail, and battles in the realm of the Spirit that were settled in our favor while we were unaware. Gratitude opens our eyes to these invisible victories. It humbles us before the majesty of a God who neither slumbers nor sleeps. This day carries opportunities wrapped in ordinary moments. Conversations we will have, decisions we will make, paths we will walk. All of it unfolds because God granted us breath. Breath is the signature of His life within us. From the beginning, He breathed into man and made him a living soul. And every morning, that same divine generosity continues. To wake up is to receive a fresh impartation of possibility. It is heaven's announcement that there is still more to accomplish, more to learn, more to become in Him. Gratitude shifts our perspective. Instead of complaining about what we lack, we marvel at what we have been given. Instead of fearing the uncertainties of the day, we anchor our hearts in the certainty that God has already gone before us. When we recognize that this day is a gift, we treat it with reverence. We become careful with our words, intentional with our actions, and sensitive to His leading. A grateful heart is a guarded heart. It does not take lightly what God has provided. Every sunrise is a sermon without words. It declares that darkness does not have the final say. Just as night gives way to morning, so challenges give way to grace. The fact that we are alive today means that hope is alive within us. God's mercy has written our names into this moment. He has allowed us to participate in another chapter of His unfolding plan. This realization births worship from the depths of our being. Gratitude for life also carries responsibility. If God has preserved us, then our lives must reflect His goodness. The breath He gives is not merely for survival, it is for purpose. We are alive to love, to serve, to grow, to honor Him with every faculty He has entrusted to us. When we rise each morning with thanksgiving, we align ourselves with heaven's rhythm. We acknowledge that this day is not ours to waste, but His to steward through us. So as we stand in this new day, we hold our breath as sacred, our time as precious, and our existence as a miracle sustained by the hand of God. We recognize that gratitude is the gateway into deeper fellowship with Him, and that every inhalation is a reminder that His mercy has spoken again over our lives. Ladies and gentlemen, when we acknowledge God's mercy through the night, we are stepping into a revelation that most people overlook. Night is more than a span of hours marked by darkness. It is a season of vulnerability. When we lie down to sleep, we surrender control. Our eyes close, our awareness fades, and our strength becomes irrelevant. In those moments, we are completely dependent on God. We cannot defend ourselves. We cannot monitor our surroundings. We cannot even guarantee that our hearts will continue to beat. Yet through the silent watches of the night, His mercy stands guard. The mercy of God is not passive. It is active and vigilant. While we slept, heaven was awake. Angels were on assignment. The presence of God surrounded us like a shield. There were dangers that attempted to approach, but His mercy said no. There were arrows that flew in the unseen realm, but they could not prosper because His covering remained intact over our lives. We may never fully comprehend how much we were protected from, but the simple fact that we woke up is evidence that mercy prevailed. Night often symbolizes uncertainty, fear, and hidden battles. It is in the night that anxieties can grow louder and doubts attempt to whisper their lies. Yet even in the thickest darkness, God's mercy does not diminish. It does not flicker like a weak flame. It burns steadily with divine authority. His mercy is not intimidated by the night. It does not retreat because the sun has set. Instead, it becomes even more evident because when human strength rests, divine strength takes over completely. To acknowledge God's mercy through the night is to admit that we are not self-sustaining. It is to humble ourselves before the one who watches over Israel and never slumbers nor sleeps. We did not survive the night because we are careful or strong. We survived because God is faithful. The air that continued to flow into our lungs while we were unconscious was regulated by His command. The rhythm of our hearts was maintained by His decree. Every system in our bodies functioned under the supervision of His sovereignty. There are people who went to bed with us yesterday, but did not wake to see this morning, not because they were weaker or less deserving, but because life is held in the hands of God alone. This realization should awaken deep gratitude within us. Mercy is not something we earn, it is something we receive. It is the compassionate decision of God to preserve us despite our flaws, despite our mistakes, despite our shortcomings. His mercy does not consult our perfection, it flows from His love. Throughout the night, while dreams came and went, while the world grew quiet, God remained attentive. He watched over our homes. He guarded our families. He silenced threats before they reached our doors. There were accidents scheduled in the realm of possibility that never manifested because mercy intercepted them. There were sicknesses that tried to take root but found no permission. His mercy acted as a divine filter, allowing only what aligned with His purpose to pass through. When we rise in the morning, we must not rush past this revelation. The comfort of our beds and the routine of our alarms can dull our awareness of the miracle that has just occurred. To wake up is to receive a fresh installment of mercy. It is God saying once again, I have preserved you. And preservation is not accidental, it is intentional. If He has sustained us through the night, it means there is still purpose attached to our lives. Acknowledging His mercy reshapes our attitude toward the day ahead. Instead of stepping forward with pride, we walk with humility. Instead of assuming control, we yield to His guidance. Mercy reminds us that we are recipients before we are achievers. Everything we will attempt today rests upon the foundation of what He has already done for us while we slept. There is something powerful about pausing in the morning and whispering gratitude for the unseen protection of the night. It aligns our hearts with truth. It softens our spirits. It draws us into deeper dependence on God. When we truly understand that His mercy stood between us and countless dangers, fear loses its grip. Anxiety begins to fade. Confidence rises, not in ourselves, but in the One who kept us. The night may have been long, and for some, filled with restlessness or silent tears. Yet even in those moments, mercy was present. God was not absent from the darkness. He was near, sustaining, protecting, preserving. And now, ladies and gentlemen, when we speak of surrendering the day's plans into God's hands, we are stepping into a sacred exchange between human limitation and divine sovereignty. Every new day arrives carrying expectations, responsibilities, appointments, and ambitions. Our minds begin to calculate almost immediately. What must be done? Who must be called? Which decisions must be made? Yet, before we allow the momentum of activity to carry us away, there is a higher wisdom that calls us to pause and place every plan into the hands of God. Surrender is not weakness, it is alignment. It is the conscious decision to acknowledge that although we can plan, only God can establish. We may write schedules and set goals, but the unfolding of events rests under His authority. To surrender the day is to invite Him into every detail, into the meetings, the conversations, the silent thoughts, and even the unexpected interruptions. It is to declare that this day is not merely a sequence of tasks, but a canvas upon which His will must be painted. There is a subtle pride that tempts us to believe we are in control. It whispers that our intelligence, preparation, and effort are enough to secure success. But life has a way of reminding us that variables exist beyond our reach. Circumstances can shift without warning. Opportunities can arise unplanned. Challenges can appear without invitation. When we surrender our plans to God, we are not abandoning responsibility. We are transferring ultimate control to the One who sees the end from the beginning. God's perspective is not limited to the present hour. He stands outside of time, viewing the entirety of our journey at once. What appears urgent to us may be insignificant in the scope of eternity, and what seems small may carry eternal weight. Surrendering our plans is an act of trust in His superior vision. It is saying, Father, if this path leads away from your purpose, redirect me. If this opportunity is not aligned with your will, close the door. If this decision requires wisdom beyond my understanding, guide my steps. When we truly yield our day to Him, peace begins to replace pressure. The burden of forcing outcomes lifts from our shoulders. We still act, we still strive, we still prepare, but we do so with the assurance that God is orchestrating events beyond what we can perceive. Surrender allows us to move with confidence rather than anxiety. It teaches us that obedience is greater than ambition, and that alignment with God's will produces a fulfillment that personal achievement alone cannot provide. There are moments when our plans collide with disappointment. Meetings get cancelled. Efforts seem fruitless. Doors close unexpectedly. Without surrender, these moments breed frustration and doubt. But when the day has already been placed in God's hands, even disruptions become divine tools. We begin to ask not, why is this happening to me? But rather, what is God accomplishing through this? Surrender transforms obstacles into opportunities for divine intervention. Placing our plans before God also refines our motives. It forces us to examine whether our pursuits are driven by ego, fear, comparison, or genuine calling. In His presence, selfish ambition loses its appeal. We begin to desire not just success, but significance rooted in His purpose. Our ambitions become sanctified. Our goals become instruments through which His glory can be revealed. There is something powerful about starting the day with open hands rather than clenched fists. Open hands symbolize trust. They signify readiness to receive and willingness to release. When we hold our plans too tightly, we resist divine adjustment. But when we offer them freely to God, we create space for Him to elevate, modify, or replace them according to His wisdom. This posture does not diminish our dreams. It purifies them. Surrender is also a daily discipline. It is not a one-time declaration, but a continual choice. As the hours unfold, we may need to return repeatedly to that place of yielding. When tension rises, we remind ourselves that the day belongs to God. When uncertainty surfaces, we reaffirm that He is guiding our steps. This ongoing surrender keeps our hearts anchored, preventing us from drifting into self-reliance. In entrusting our plans to Him, we acknowledge that our lives are part of a greater narrative. Each task, each encounter, each decision becomes woven. Ladies and gentlemen, when we pray for divine guidance, protection, and strength throughout the day, we are acknowledging that the journey before us cannot be navigated by human wisdom alone. Each day unfolds like a path we have never walked before. Though it may resemble yesterday, it carries its own unique challenges, decisions, and unseen spiritual dynamics. To step into it without seeking God's guidance is to rely on limited sight, but to invite His direction is to walk under the illumination of heaven. Divine guidance is more than receiving instructions. It is cultivating sensitivity to the voice of God. In the noise of responsibilities and conversations, His whisper can easily be overshadowed. Yet when we deliberately ask for His guidance, we are positioning our hearts to discern His leading. Sometimes that guidance comes as clarity in decision-making. Sometimes it appears as a gentle restraint, a check within our spirit urging us to pause. At other times, it manifests as boldness to act when fear would otherwise paralyze us. To seek His guidance is to admit that we do not know everything, but we trust the one who does. Protection is equally essential. The day may look ordinary, but beyond what our eyes can see, there are forces and circumstances that could harm, distract, or derail us. We are not merely engaging with physical realities. There are spiritual dimensions influencing outcomes. When we ask for God's protection, we are not praying from fear, but from awareness. We recognize that safety is not guaranteed by caution alone, but by divine covering. His protection shields our minds from destructive thoughts, our hearts from bitterness, and our bodies from dangers seen and unseen. There are words that may be spoken to us today that carry the potential to wound. There are situations that could provoke anger or discouragement. Divine protection guards not only our external environment, but also our internal responses. It preserves our peace in the face of chaos. It keeps our character intact when provoked. It enables us to walk through tension without absorbing negativity. Under God's protection, we are not easily shaken because we are anchored in His presence. Strength is the third pillar of this prayer. Even with guidance and protection, we must still engage the demands of the day. Responsibilities require energy. Challenges demand resilience. Interactions call for patience and compassion. Human strength has limits. It fluctuates with emotions, sleep, and circumstances. But divine strength is steady. When we ask God for strength, we are seeking an empowerment that goes beyond physical stamina. We are asking for endurance when tasks feel overwhelming, courage when situations appear intimidating, and perseverance when progress seems slow. Strength from God enables us to remain faithful in small assignments as well as significant ones. It sustains integrity when compromise might seem easier. It fuels kindness when frustration tempts us to respond harshly. It empowers discipline when distractions compete for our attention. Divine strength does not always remove difficulty. Often, it fortifies us to withstand it. It transforms pressure into growth and adversity into refinement. Asking for guidance, protection, and strength is an act of dependence. It dismantles the illusion of self-sufficiency. It reminds us that every step forward is sustained by grace. There is humility in acknowledging that without God's direction, we may choose unwisely. Without His protection, we may be vulnerable. Without His strength, we may falter. Yet there is also confidence in knowing that when we invite Him into our day, we do not walk alone. Throughout the hours ahead, there will be moments requiring quick decisions and others requiring patient waiting. There will be interactions that uplift and perhaps some that challenge our composure. In all these moments, divine guidance aligns our choices with God's will. Protection shields us from harm, and strength carries us through with steadfastness. This threefold request forms a covering over the entire day, weaving God's presence into every detail. When we consciously seek these gifts at the beginning of the day, we cultivate awareness that God is actively involved in our journey. We begin to look for His fingerprints in circumstances. We recognize His intervention in